Hi guys, and welcome back to MyDankU. Just a reminder guys, I live in Canada, legal since 2018. This is episode 2 of my Skywalker OG in the Vivosun VGrow Smart Grow Box. It's turned into a bit of a saga guys, let's get into it. Also guys, I've got 2 new channels that I've started up. One is dedicated to micro grows. You can check out the links in the description below. And the second one is MyDankU University, which is dedicated to me talking to people in the industry, growers of all different levels, beginners, pros, specialists in their fields. So check out those links below. There's no content on the channels at the moment, but I'll be uploading in the next week or 2 to both of them. And I'll be putting highlights on this channel to remind everybody to head over there. Big shout out to Vivosun for sponsoring the channel, and if you guys are in the market for some Vivosun gear, you can save 15% off at vivosun.com and the Amazon stores with my promo code MyDankU. Check out the links in the description below. Alright guys, let's get into it. In my last episode I was installing this grow cam into my VGrow Smart Grow Box. Pretty straightforward. Basically I connect to it via Wi-Fi and scan a QR code within the app and it connects to my Grow Pilot. And as you can see, you just scroll down and it's there in my devices and I can just click on that and it's going to take me to what the Grow Cam is seeing and recording. And this is where you can set up your time lapses. I've currently got it on 15-minute intervals and I had it running for a month, which comes out to about 4 minutes of footage. You can preview it at any time. You can download it to your phone. And that's what basically we're going to be looking at in this episode. I do like it. It's a great addition to my smart grow box. It's kind of cool that I can just kind of peek into my grow box as I'm watching TV without actually having to get up off my bum or off the sofa and take a look in there. So yeah, it's cool. It's a cool addition. And also it's great because I don't have to think about doing extra footage. It's all there. It's capturing the grow. It's also got night vision as well, so it captures it when you are flipping your plants or you've got the lights out as well. So it's pretty cool. I used to use a iPhone on a tripod, as you can see on the left hand side there, but it took up too much space, especially in the VGrow. It's not so bad if you're using larger, more traditional tents, but it's fantastic footage that I've got here and I don't have to worry about the space. It does night vision too, so let's just rewind and go back to the beginning of the grow. That was just a quick preview of the grow cam footage. But let's get back to the beginning of this grow. This is a Skywalker OG and I germinated her outside of the VGrow in a small tent from Vivosun that's ideal for germinating seeds as well as clones as well. I used a rockwool cube or stonewool cube, depending on what you want to call that, and basically that's my go-to at the moment. I found them pretty useful. I've kind of moved away from germinating and cracking my beans in soil. I find the rockwool cubes to be really good, especially when it comes to the DWC as well. As you can see, this is 2 weeks old and she's looking pretty good. One of her leaves is a little bit manky. It's got some browny yellow stuff on the edges, but I find this happens quite a lot with true leaves and their first set of leaves. You get some mangled stuff. I've grown this Skywalker OG bean before, as you can see on the bottom left hand side there. I grew that in a air pot and in soil, so I'm interested to compare the two. This one's obviously started in stonewool or rockwool and is going to be grown in cocoa inside the VGrow, and the other one was grown in soil under a 200-watt light in an air pot. So I should be able to compare the two and we can get a good gauge on what they look like. Or that's what my plan was, guys. As you get to the end of this video, not everything goes to plan, but that was my intention. As you can see, these leaves are quite broad from the start. There's the manky stuff on the edge of that leaf on the left there, and there's a little bit on the right hand side there too. But apart from that, she looked pretty healthy from the start. Quite broad leaves. She was quite tall, I noticed. She did stretch a little bit, but all shoots from seeds and beans, they're all a little bit different. I do find that the majority of them have some kind of variegation or a little bit of a weird deformed things on seeds, and that might be a little bit too many nutrients or something to do with the soil, but I do find it's quite common. As you can see on this stone wool cube or rock wool cube, the roots are starting to shoot out here. So I think it's a good time for me to transplant her into the VGrow Smart Grow Box. I've already got her mix of cocoa and perlite set up, and you can check that out in the previous episode. This is my second grow in the VGrow. On the first grow, I followed the grow pilot, but on this one, I'm basically just going to be growing as I would normally grow. The nutrients here from Vivosun are actually in gallons on the back, and I use litres. So 1 gallon is equal to 4.5 litres. I'm basically going to be doing a mix of 1 ml of base A per litre and 1 ml of base B per litre. So 2 ml per litre to start with. And then I'm going to ramp that up to 2 ml of base A and 2 ml of base B per litre as she starts to grow. And then I might ramp that up even more, but basically I'll play that one by ear. And I'm also not going to be using any CalMag unless necessary. I'm just going to be relying on these nutrients so that we can all see whether they're good or not. I'm also going to be using the lights as I see fit. So I'm probably going to start on 60% for the seedling or shoot as it is right now. And I'm going to be setting up the air ducts and circulation fan on around 3. Now, the humidity is not going to be an issue because it's tiny. It's only going to get an issue as she starts to kind of really pack on some weight and some leaves. I've got the drip irrigation fit into the other USB port, and that's on an interval of 15 minutes every 24 hours, and I'll probably ramp that up too. What we're actually going to be doing is low stress training this plant rather than using the trellis. So when I actually transplant her, I'm going to be transplanting her close to one side of this fabric pot here, so not in the center, because my goal is to actually bend the plant over towards the other side and then kind of stretch her leaves out and get an even canopy with the LST. So that's the reason that I'm putting this stone wool cube or rock wool cube over to one side of the pot and not in the center. I'm not going to be using the trellis. I'm just going to be using LST, training wire, and the grommets or holes that you see on the edge of this fabric pot. I'm going to be using those to thread the training wire through and pull this little plant when she gets bigger in lots of different directions. It's kind of brutal when you actually see it later on in the video. It's kind of like bondage. When I first did LST, I was very nervous about doing it. I thought it was going to snap something, break something, but I was the same when I first defoliated my plants as well. I thought my plant was going to die and never grow back, but they're very strong and they grow back really quickly. As you can see, this is the footage from the Grow Cam. On the left hand side there is the iPhone that I normally use for time lapses. So I took some footage so that we can compare. This is the Grow Cam, and then we're just going to switch over to the same time frame but the footage from the iPhone. So it's pretty comparable. I'm not going to be using the iPhone for the rest of this video or the rest of the grow. I'm just going to be relying on the Grow Cam. So it's time to give her some LST. Now I'm going to be using a tent peg for the first kind of round of LST, which is pretty standard for me. Basically, I use this to bend that stalk over to the opposite side of the pot. Now, her stalk is pretty bendy right now. As they get older, the stalks are not so bendy, so it's good to do it as they're young and it doesn't really harm them. They bounce back really quick. I also chopped off the bottom leaves off this shoot. These are the manky leaves that were kind of on the plant at the very beginning with the little orange tinges and brown tinges on the edges. So they're not really doing anything. So it's good just to kind of like keep your plant clean from the beginning, get rid of those unwanted, unuseful leaves. You want the top leaves to kind of be the kind of solar panels, and the bottom leaves you can just kind of take off. As you can see, she bounces straight back up towards the sun with these solar panel leaves on the top, and they grow pretty quickly. So you do need to adjust your LST. Check in daily. Maybe you only need to adjust every 2 days, 3 days, but sometimes you need to do it every day as well. So it's good just to check in when you are doing some low stress training, or even when you're doing a trellis as well. It's good just to kind of reposition and retrain and basically check in on your plant every day when you are doing the low stress training. these leaves are starting to worry me. This is basically where my spidey senses are tingling. These leaves are huge for an auto flower in my experience at this stage. It's not the variegation on the leaves. I'm kind of used to seeing mutated leaves and variegated leaves at the beginning of a grow, but these leaves are pretty damn big. So my spidey senses are definitely tingling right now, especially as I've grown another Skywalker OG auto, and the leaves at the beginning at this age I can compare in video and in photographs, and they were not like this. So I'm wondering at this point in time whether it's a male or whether it's actually a photo period, but it's not the variegation or the mutation on the leaves that's starting to worry me right now. It's actually the size of the leaves. The tent peg, as you can see, gets pulled out of the cocoa pretty easy. I find the tent peg gets stuck into soil a lot better because it's heavy and it's dense, but it gets pulled out of cocoa really quite easy because cocoa is quite light, and this there's no kind of friction between the metal and the tent peg when you use cocoa, so you do have to reposition it more often, I find. As you can see, I've basically taken it up the stalk a bit and kind of nudged it in between one of those new branches there to help put it down even more. Eventually the stalk is actually just going to grow in this shape and you won't need the tent peg. Check out the variegation and mutation on this. It is unusual, but it's just the kind of like huge floppiness of these leaves. Obviously there's smaller ones on the left hand side there, but I took them off because they're just way too big for this plant and the LST that I'm trying to do right now. I want those lower branches to grow a lot quicker so that I can start stretching them out in the direction of the holes or the grommets on this fabric pot. So you're going to see that in this later video. What's really neat is that I got all of this grow for the past 6 weeks on the grow cam. So it's really cool just to see all of it just kind of bounce back, and then in between see actually what I did, and then see the plant grow, bounce back, head up towards the light again. This is the grow cam footage. It's actually really hypnotizing to watch time lapses, I find. It's pretty peaceful to watch. It's kind of nice that I have this grow cam now because I'm not constantly worrying about how much space is on my iPhone and whether the battery is going to go and die. It's all plugged in and basically not even a thought at the front of my mind. I can just go in and replay. But this is the plant 4 weeks old and my spidey senses are going off like crazy right now because there's something very different about the way this plant is growing compared to the first Skywalker OG Auto. They just look like very different plants. Now, these are huge fan leaves. So at this point in time, I was thinking, is this a male potentially, or is it a photo period? But these fan leaves are huge. I trimmed them off and I'm going to continue with the LST here. We're actually going to do some more stapling or repositioning of the stapling. And then I'm actually going to use some LST wire. I use bud trainer wire, the yellow stuff, basically because it looks cooler than the green stuff and I can actually see where it is. So I'm just starting with one piece, as you can see. But as those bottom kind of stalks get longer and start to stretch out, I'm going to be pulling those over to the grommets as well, and then threading more training wire through there to kind of like really stretch out the plant to get kind of like a side canopy. Think of it as you're having a side canopy rather a top canopy. As you can see, she's ready to go. She's looking like a frog on a science table, a little bit ready for a dissection. It's yeah, it's a bit of a weird thing to kind of like plan for. You have to actually look at the plant and think, this kind of branch is going to go here, this branch is going to go there. So it does take a little kind of bit of trial and error and practice, but the basic principle is just growing the plant on its side and then stretching its limbs out towards the corners. They grow back so quick, it's amazing. Just look at this, it's fantastic how quick they're growing, but also, as you can see, just how big those fan leaves are growing again. So I'm gonna have to take those off because she is just a bush. Look at the size of this. There's definitely something different about this plant. I was 100% convinced right now that this is either a different strain, a male, or a photoperiod and not an auto. It's basically not the same plant as my first grow. So I can see a huge difference on that. When I actually edit the video of the other Skywalker OG growing in an air pot, and I'll put them side by side, you can see the difference is actually huge. So I'm convinced that this is a different plant. It's all going to come out in the wash as we go through this video and grow, but these leaves are definitely larger and they're kind of floppier as well, but no signs of balls yet. She doesn't have any seed pods or anything like that, so no signs that she's male. So fingers crossed it is just basically either a different strain or a photo period. I'm actually leaning towards a photo period right now. It happened to me on my Bruce Banner auto that actually turned out to be a photo period. As you can see, I've given her a lot more kind of defoliation here. I'm really trying to get the lights down to those kind of lower branches so that they grow, so that I can stretch them out to the sides. They're actually quite long now, so we can start to kind of like fiddle around with those lower branches, but she's growing pretty quick, pretty bushy, and I'm gonna have to keep an eye on her. I've actually stretched out more of these branches, as you can see, so she's starting to look like she's on the rack right now. But as you see from above, it's basically forming a much wider canopy, a wider lower canopy, and as that grows it should be quite equal. It's kind of like creating your own trellis. Think of it as creating your own trellis. So when you're doing this, it's really good just to kind of like have a look at the plant from above, because you want it to be spread out and you can kind of see where you want your branches to grow to. Another thing that I noticed is that the roots were starting to grow out the side of the pot. Now, I had the roots grow out from the bottom of the pot on my previous VGrow grow, and with fabric pots, the roots do grow out the side, but it didn't happen on the first grow. It's really good to see this kind of low stress training work as it's supposed to in slow motion from the correct angle. You can see that the canopy is really starting to spread out to the top of the pot, and you can see it's much more kind of uniformed as opposed to how the plants usually grow, with a kind of central cola and then lower colas at each side. This is going to be much more uniform, but she's getting really bushy. The more I see her grow, the more I'm starting to think that she's a photo period. So I think this is actually the unknown Jedi rather than the Skywalker OG at this point. As you can see, 5.5 weeks old and no sign of flower, but I'm pretty confident that this is a female. There's no signs of balls or banana kind of sacs, or nanas as some people call them. This is the roots that are coming through here. It's getting pretty intense. It's pretty spiky. It looks like the back of a hedgehog or a cactus or something like that. Did not have this on the first grow, so it's unusual to see it. Now all of these roots will kind of cauterize themselves as they meet the air. They'll die off and they won't carry on growing, but I'm sure underneath this pot it's quite crazy with the root system, but we'll save that for a later date. I'm going to have to lollipop her now. As you can see, there's no space at the bottom there. We've done some good LST and got kind of like a messy cabbagey haircut going on at the moment. There's kind of like a brightness to the leaves. I don't think it's a deficiency. I'm not going to be putting any CalMag in at the moment. I'm going to be sticking to the Vivosun nutrients. These leaves look pretty good, but there's no sign of flower at the moment, but there's also no sign of seeds or nanas or any kind of like Hermy kind of things going on. So at this point in time, I'm just pretty confident that this is a photo period. I've seen this before. I had a Bruce Banner auto flower purchase that actually turned out to be a Bruce Banner photo period. You can actually go and check that video if you like. This is looking great. She's looking super bushy. She's looking super healthy. It's really hypnotizing to watch this kind of grow and the canopy spread out like this. She's definitely growing. This is 100% light now, still at 24 hours cycle, but I think I'm going to have to start considering flipping her. I'm definitely going to be defoliating her, as she's 6.5 weeks old now and no sign of flower, so I'm really thinking I'm going to give her a good lollipopping right now, give her a good defoliation, maybe change some of the low stress training a touch if it's needed. I'm not really sure right now. I'm going to have to defoliate her, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to try and flip her because 6.5 weeks old. Don't really want this to go too much longer because there's going to be a big stretch after she flips as well. So a little bit concerned about this because we are limited space wise in the VGrow Smart Grow box, but starting to dig in at the bottom here. Some good lollipopping going on. There's going to be a lot more kind of airflow and air exchange at the bottom there. There's not really much for me to kind of do on the LST. These kind of wires, I'm going to readjust them, but right now they're not really bringing these branches down. I think the LST is over right now. She really does need a good kind of haircut and chopping as we start to get into it. She looks a little bit scruffy, but yeah, as I can see, as I kind of like chop her, I'm more and more confident that this is a photo period. I'm not too happy about it because I basically plan my grows based on, you know, a timeline. It's kind of like, okay, in about 12 weeks time, I'm going to be doing X, Y, or Z. But with a photo period, it's a lot longer. You obviously have to give it its veg, then you have to flip it, and then you have to put it into flower. So it's a lot longer grow than an auto flower. But I guess I'm going to have to put myself to the test. It's definitely going to push the limits of this grow space. These leaves are beautiful looking. The fan leaves are quite big. This one's like a smaller one, but super healthy. So the nutrients from Vivosun are doing really well. This is a pretty large fan leaf, as you can see. It's almost as big as my hand or bigger than my hand. So yeah, gonna dig in here, gonna chop her up some more, and basically I'm gonna consider, maybe I'll take a day or two to consider whether I'm gonna flip her, see if there's any difference in the next day or two after I give her a chop. Look at the size of the stalks attaching to these fan leaves here. That's huge, really a huge stretch on this plant all over. The size of the leaves, the kind of bushness of the leaves, the stretch is just definitely not kind of the same as the last auto flower that I had. So 100% confident that this is a photo period. This is the training wire that I'm using. I tried to use a bud clip, but I kind of cocked up and I ended up having a bit of an accident and snapping a branch. So I immediately taped it up. I think it's going to be good. I got it quick, but it was like an 80% snap on this branch. So if it comes off, I'm not too bothered. I'm only going to be losing one kind of area of growth, but hopefully we can save it. Usually takes about a week, maybe 10 days before you know if it's been saved. So I'll keep an eye on that. I really trimmed her down, as you can see. She's massively defoliated. She looks a little bit scraggly, but I'm pretty sure that she's going to grow back in no time flat. So gonna check her out on the grow cam, as you can see, and about a day later I decided that I was gonna flip her, and I put it into a 12 on 12 off light cycle and basically hoped for the best and see if I could start to get some sign of flower. So this is basically the night vision and the 12 on 12 off, and I'm basically thinking to myself, oh my god, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna have to chop off some top nug areas. I'm not really sure, but I am gonna make it work. Every single plant that I've ever grown has given me a challenge, and I've kind of found a way to work around it. So no matter what you do or what you plan for, these are living, you know, they have their own kind of personalities and basically are gonna throw some kind of spanner in the works at some point in time. Every single grow that I've had has taught me something new, but I think basically having this happen to me once before when I thought I was growing an auto flower, I recognized this sooner. I think it was about 8 or 9 weeks on the last time before I noticed it was not an auto flower, and this was caught at about 6 weeks. This is 7 days after flip, and as I look at her, I'm pretty sure that that branch healed. I'm gonna have to defoliate her before we can get in there, but as you can see from below, there she is. It looks pretty good. Little kind of bandage on the branch there. The top of this branch looks healthy. It doesn't have any kind of signs of not receiving any nutrients, so I think I caught that in time. There's definitely some signs of buds happening here. I've checked through the plant. There's no signs of balls or bananas or nanas or whatever you want to call them, but I'm pretty confident that this was a unknown Jedi photo period. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks to Vivosun for sponsoring the channel. Stay tuned for the next episode, and hopefully I'll have some flower to show you. Bye bye.